Hello, everyone. Welcome to the CoLab. CoLab is SpacetoCo's free webinar series. My name is Teresa, and I am the Global Marketing Manager at SpacetoCo, and I'm so excited to be hosting today's session. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of Dharawal country, the land on which I'm joining you from in Wollongong, New South Wales, Australia, today. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past and present and those emerging. And I also wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which all of our participants are joining us from today. Now, the topic for today's session is shifting customer support from reactive to proactive. And this collab helps community venue managers shift from the reactive sort of firefighting mode to proactive operations. And in order to share this session, we've invited some of our fabulous SpacetoCo employees from HR, customer success, and support. So first of all, we have Tegan Bishop, and Teags is the head of people and capability at SpacetoCo. Tegan is focused on developing the internal team and supporting all of our growth. Outside of work, she's a mum of two and a devoted soccer fan, and has worn more hats at SpacetoCo over the last 4 years than most people manage in an entire decade. Next up, we have Lexi Higgins, who is one of our customer success managers at SpacetoCo, supporting customers post-onboarding with tailored solutions. Lexi is also a mum, and she is quick on her feet under pressure. But unlike Teags, Lexi is a footy fan, not that soccer stuff. Finally, we have Julius Satsadin, who is one of our senior customer support representatives at SpacetoCo, and he leads our support training, quality assurance, and coaching to improve support processes. If you've used SpacetoCo, you've likely benefited from Julius's knowledge somewhere along the way. But unlike Teags and Lexi, he's not into football of any kind. Instead, he's a huge basketball fan. But just before we bring everyone in, I'm going to hand you over to Teags, who's going to get us started for today's session and give you a little bit of context about customer support and customer success before we invite out the rest of our panel members. So thank you so much, Teags. Welcome to the CoLab, and over to you.
Thanks, Teresa. Hey, everyone. So if you don't know me, some of you may have had customer support or customer success from me in the past. I have been a support rep. I've done onboarding, customer success, and now HR within SpacetoCo. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today on our panel. So Teresa, if I could just get you to jump to the next slide for me. Oh, perfect. So we're going to be shifting or talking about shifting from customer support to customer success, which is being reactive versus proactive. So customer support is typically reactive, right? So your guest comes to you with a problem and you have to sit there and you respond to the answer or respond to the question with an answer. And, you're normally working through that. So an example of this could be, I've got a casual hirer who's come to me and they need access to a venue. So I need to respond to that. Now, customer success is typically proactive. So you might have a frequent question. So you might have in one day 5 guests ask you, how do I access a venue? And it's shifting your mindset from responding to those all individually and how can I actually make this so moving forward, my guests have this information. So it's getting to know the desired outcome before your guests actually have to ask. So Teresa, I'll just get you to go to the next slide for me. Thank you. So understanding support versus success. So customer support is typically reactive again, and success is proactive. So a trigger for customer support is an inbound question or an issue, versus success, which is there's no trigger required, it's continuous, the answer is already available to your guest. The goal for customer support is to resolve the issue immediately, versus success, which is the guest, in your case, or in our case, the host, reaches their desired outcome without actually having to go to you first. So with customer support and being reactive, it can take minutes to hours, versus being proactive in success is it just becomes part of that booking life cycle and that bookings journey. So with customer support, you're responding And with success and being proactive, you're anticipating. So that's the difference we're looking at between support and success. And there's a couple of different ways we can measure this. So some support metrics that we use here at SpacetoCo is the first time to respond, the resolution time, our ticket and call volumes, and our customer service satisfaction scores. Now, success measures could be your repeat bookings or your renewal rates. You want to see more people coming through the doors and returning. Your retention of your guests, your self-serve adoption, so fewer questions coming to you. You want your guests to self-service as much as possible, and your escalation rate is lower. So now in venue hire, for example, we need both. In any situation, you need both reactive and proactive support. So customer support is needed for simple booking inquiries, often from, once-off casual bookings, versus success, which is needed for, regular and repeat bookings and to help identify common issues that you might have within your centers and proactively preventing those questions and making sure that your guests are having that, best experience that they can. So today we're going to be talking about that shift from reactive support versus proactive support, and that's exactly what today's panel is about. And in regards to applications, it's not just a venue problem. So today we're talking about venues. However, you can apply it across the board. If you can identify the same pattern in a different application, you can spot it anywhere. This could be from, your rates and billings, permits and approvals, and even from library services. Doesn't matter what you do, if you're in a council, community-led venue, or even just a personal, personal day-to-day. So what's the real cost of staying reactive? Your staff time. You're answering the same question time and time again instead of just once. And this can impact your team morale. You're constantly in firefighting mode, which is burning people out faster than steady planned work. And the experience. Unanswered or slow responses, read, are not come across as not caring, even when your team is flat out and you genuinely want to respond, you just don't have time to respond. So we want to start seeing into the future. So now I'm going to bring in Lexi and Julius, and we're going to ask them a couple of different questions on how they would react in certain scenarios. Hey, Lexi, how are you?
Hello, good. How are you?
Good, thanks. Hey, Julius, how are you today?
Doing good as well.
Fantastic. All right. So not every team, not every venue team, sorry, has CRMs or analytics that they can use. So what are 2 or 3 simple low-tech ways that they can start being proactive today? Lexi, I'll start with you.
Thanks, Tegan. One of the best ways to start being proactive is creating an online induction. Record a short walkthrough video where you can add to the document management to send your guests as part of your booking process. You can record yourself walking through your venue, showing your guests where the light switches are, where the locks are, how to access the venue, and also things like the aircon controls. This gives your guests the answers to the questions before they have entered your space, reducing those last-minute pop-up questions and creating a seamless experience for your guest.
So again, becoming proactive versus reactive. Fantastic. And what about you, Julius? What would you do?
Okay, so thanks everyone for joining us. And to add up to Lexi's answer, you can actually define the top 3 or top 5 questions that your guests have. And then once you have the answers to those questions, you can turn it into simple template welcome emails or FAQs on your webpage. But better yet, you can build it into the document management system of SpacetoCo so that you can make it a part of the booking process as your guests make the bookings. You can also add the information to the access instructions section when you're building the space, because this information is the one that's included in the notification email received by your guest when they make their bookings. So somehow ahead of time they'll be given the proper information heading towards their booking.
Fantastic. So again, being proactive versus reactive, giving them the information before they actually get into the venue
Yes,
so that they're
exactly.
not having to reach out.
Hmm.
Fantastic. All right. So the next question that we have today is, to prevent a problem, you have to know it's coming, right? So from a customer success and a support perspective, What are some early warning signs or customer signals that tell you that a guest is about to run into trouble? Lexi.
Might not necessarily be an early warning sign that hosts can see just yet, hinting at maybe some future things. But making sure that your booking process, like your questions and your additional items and charges, are really easy to understand from a guest perspective. I see all too often going through booking processes, setting up new spaces with a dozen questions and 10 different items and charges that they need to add, that it just confuses people, and it can really reduce the accessibility of your space for someone that might not be as technologically advanced, or they have trouble reading and understanding. Try making a booking for your space from a guest, keeping an open mind about what an actual guest might be seeing and feeling when they're making a booking. If you get stuck, have a think about your guest and where they might be getting stuck.
That's a really good point, Lexi. I really like that. And being, again, proactive and actually making a booking on your own space and seeing what your guest is going to be experiencing. Julius, what about you?
Based on experience working in the accounts receivable, I could say that one of the early warnings towards your guest heading into a much bigger problem is when their registered payment method to their account is outdated. So let's say if they're a regular hirer and they have the card that they have on the account, or the direct debit account, is no longer working. So it would lead to failed payments when the invoices are released and charged, usually during the 14th of the month. So when this happens, they will be sent a number of notification emails for those failed attempts. And what we would have to do then is to contact them to have this checked and have them update their payment method. Whereas if you, as the host, would check their verified applications at least once a month, that should be enough. Just do like a quick browse if any application has outdated payment methods, and then reach out to your guest and have this change prior to the actual charge date, then the charges would be completed right then and there. So this leads to everyone having to not do any other stuff or any further action after the invoicing has begun, the invoicing cycle. So, yeah, it takes a lot of work off of the hands of the host, the guest, and from our end as well. So it's like three birds with one stone.
Fantastic. So again, you're making sure that everything is updated for your guests, ready to go for that next billing cycle.
That's correct.
Awesome. And something I want to add as well, so something that I found personally when working in customer support and customer success, is one warning or early warning sign that I used to find with regular hires is all of a sudden they might start cancelling their bookings last minute. They might start cancelling their bookings in general. Yeah, their tone might change. They might become a little bit frustrated. Now, that's a sign to actually then reach out to them proactively. So have a chat with them, find out what might be going wrong. It may not even have anything to do with the venue, but it's good once again to get, in that forefront instead of actually waiting for something to happen. Fantastic. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, so proactive outreach can sometimes feel like you're bothering people, right? And that's one thing we don't want to do. So teams feel like that they don't have time sometimes as well. They might be buried in that reactive work, which can impact, that proactive outreach. So Lexi, how do you overcome that initial friction, and how do you prove it's actually saving you time?
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Every opportunity with a guest should provide value, and it should never just be just a check-in. Before I send an email or make the phone call, I like to think about a few different things. Why I'm reaching out, what value I'm going to provide when reaching out, who is the right person I should talk to, and how is the best way to contact them. This little sense check can bring you back in just to ensure that you understand what you want to get out of the interaction, who the right person to speak to is. You might be speaking to someone that doesn't even have anything to do with SpacetoCo, and they're just listed on the account. It's you also want to make sure that you're choosing the right approach to how you're contacting them, whether it be an email, a phone call, or one of those a Google Meet type meeting. Being prepared takes that friction and anxiety out of it from your side, and it shows your customer or your host that you're really you are there to provide value, and you're not just trying to be annoying when you're reaching out.
Fantastic. So providing value with every interaction. All right. And what about you, Julius? What would you do in that situation?
Yep. Basically, just making them understand the value of what they're about to do. So basically, giving up a little time now would actually save up more time in the future because you're trying to resolve the issue before it gets bigger. So yeah, if they understand what's in it for them once they do this, so it's sort of very easy for them to like take action right then and there.
Fantastic. All right. Let's move to the next slide. All right. So one of the things that we've recently done at our recent CoFest. So for those who don't know what CoFest is, every 18 months to 2 years, SpacetoCo get together in a different country, and we fly everyone in. And it's a time for us to recharge our batteries. We plan ahead for the next 2 years. We get to connect and really get together as a team. And I believe Lexi actually introduced us to this little activity. So, and it's one I wanted to show you guys today. So, let me tell you about the 11-star experience, okay? So, the 11-star experience came from Airbnb CEO Brian Chesky, and it's an exercise designed to help you break out of incremental thinking. And instead of asking, how do we make our service slightly better, you map out your 1 to 11 stars. So, what I might do is I'll hand over to Lexi. I think Lexi's going to be able to explain this a little bit better, given that she's done this activity with us before.
Yeah, thanks, Teeks. So the 11-star experience really focuses on that out of this world experience. Like, we're talking 11 stars, Channing Tatum showing up to your venue and taking you to the moon on a private rocket ship. That is completely out of this world, would never happen, but it's just to really get you thinking about where things could go. That 1 to 3 stars is the lower end of the scale. It's, they turn up to the venue, the key's not working, the aircon is blowing hot on a 45-degree day type scenario. Your 4 to 6 stars is around the midpoint. It's an experience. You rock up to the venue, the key works, everything happens. You leave. It's a forgettable experience. Nothing memorable happened. Where you really want to keep your focus is that 6 to 8 star, 9-star area. That's where things get really personal. You're getting a memorable experience from your host. For venues that are using platforms like SpacetoCo, translating this concept is really about moving away from that transactional mindset. They booked the room, the keys were handed over, everything worked, to a hospitality mindset that creates genuine delight. You really, really want to aim for that 6 to 7, 8-star area. Some typical examples. So for a pre-event care, the 5-star baseline, they get that automated email that's got the access instructions and the standard terms and conditions. The 6 to 7-star reality is something as simple as that pre-recorded video that shows them exactly where to park, where the lockbox is for the key, how to access how to turn the lights on or the aircon controls. It just completely eliminates the pre-event mental load for both you and your guest. For a post-event, the 5-star baseline is something like a generic automated response to their review. Thanks for your review, and just leaving it. That's it. A 6 to 7-star reality is taking, 30 seconds to a minute to send a warm, personalized response to their review. Something like, we loved hosting your team's workshop, Sarah. So glad the room layout worked well for your team, and we can't wait to welcome you back for the next one. This post-event care is really, really important because, one, you're providing that genuine experience for the guest. You're creating that relationship, which will encourage them to come back. They had a really good experience. You were great. You had everything, and then they got that little sweet spot at the end. The other thing is, it's actually a double whammy replying to your reviews, because it boosts your search engine optimization, which is your search discoverability through Google. So the more reviews that you reply to, the more Google likes you. So if someone was to search hire a venue in your area, hopefully those reviews will bump you to the top and you'll be more discoverable for new hires as well.
Fantastic. Thanks, Lexi. And Julius, tell me a little bit about what venues could do from your point of view that could provide that experience to guests as well.
Yes. So what most hosts can do to provide that, I'm more into the 10-star experience, is to like contact the guest or the customer probably 2 or 3 days before their actual booking date, especially if it falls on a weekend. So from my experience in the customer support, this usually like weekend bookings usually lead to problems because no one is working during the weekends. I would say like there's a very minimal chance that someone is by the venue. So contacting them ahead of time, like giving them a call, and perhaps like having someone come over during that specific booking date and time, just so someone can ensure that the booking goes smoothly, like everything is working as it should. They can access on time, because let's say if you have a 3-hour booking slot, so you want to ensure that you maximize that time, that you'll be able to come in at least 5 minutes earlier or 15 minutes earlier. Then someone is actually there to guide you through and then assist you. So yeah, that would certainly be a memorable experience, because I've seen this. So I've seen how surveys are sent or reviews are sent to host, and those are the type of bookings that they would point out that, hey, this host has been with me all throughout the booking. And yeah, that's the kind of 10-star experience that I would want as a customer as well.
And what would make it 11 stars for you? What is your perfect 11 stars?
Easy. Like, I come in, they would say 100% refund will be granted for what I paid for the venue, and then the catering is free. Then Simple Plan is playing on stage. That would be amazing. Steve Harvey is hosting, perhaps. Yeah, something like that.
I love it. I love it. And I'm going to throw a curly one at you, Julius. Being in support, what's the most common frustrated inquiry that you receive from guests?
It's actually in line with what I mentioned earlier. So we do have weekend coverage in SpacetoCo, but at limited hours. So most of the calls that we're getting is when a guest is unable to access the venue that they booked because no one is there. Then they do not know what the access codes are. They don't have the keys and everything. So yeah, as much as we would love to help them from our end, so there isn't really much we can do because we do not own the venue. We're only the platform. So what we do at that point is to search for the outside business hours support number of the concerned host, and then we provide it to the guest, and hopefully they'll be able to connect with someone. But what if they are unable to do that? So that would be a dead end scenario. So that is something that we would want to prevent as much as possible. So yeah, really big
Fantastic.
problem if that happens. Yep.
Yeah. And Lexi, I'm going to throw the curveball back at you as well. Um, what's one of the most common questions that you get in customer success when you're talking to hosts?
That is a curveball. Thank you, Tegan. I think it comes back to that fees and charges that I mentioned earlier. I see it all the time. There's a charge for this and a fee for that and discount code for this and an additional charge for something else. And it can really make things tricky. And I think I like to spend a lot of my time helping hosts simplify their booking process just to make it more accessible. Once you start getting complicated with fees and charges and questions and additional items and things that you can add to your booking, it can be really daunting to make a booking because you get overwhelmed with the options. And you saw the advertised rate was $25 an hour, and then by the time you get to the end of your booking, the hourly rate is now $75 an hour, and it's just it can really hinder that booking experience for a guest.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, next slide, Teresa. All right, takeaway toolkit. So, Teresa, I'm not sure if you want to talk about this or if you're happy for me to keep rambling on.
I'm more than happy to let everyone know that thanks to the team for all of their insights and all of their ideas, we've actually put together a toolkit for everyone who's attending today, and also for those of you who are watching it live or for those of you who have just landed on our website, we actually have a toolkit which goes through everything that's been discussed so that you can practically apply these at your own venues and maybe even across your organization. Think about the different applications that Tegan spoke about earlier in the session. So these will be available for download and they'll be included in the email to all of the attendees. So you'll be able to use them they'll be at your disposal. So whenever you're ready, you can jump in and you can start working your way through each of the different things that we've been brought up today and how you can actually translate them into your own organization or your own venue. So we really hope that that's really useful and we look forward to receiving your feedback on that. But I'd love to jump into some more questions. Teags, do you have some more questions for the panel, or would you like me to sort of take over from this point?
If you want to take over, I'm also open to questions from our listeners today. So if anyone has a question, if you want to pop it into the audience chat, I'm sure the team would be more than happy to answer as well.
Fantastic. Well, while those questions are coming through in the chat, and I'm going to encourage everyone to really sort of take some time and have a think about it, because I promise that we don't bite. And actually, you've got a panel of really great experts here who are, the best possible people to ask in terms of how you can get the most out of SpacetoCo, and also just in terms of support and success. They're wonderful minds with plenty of ideas. So please jump in and let them know if you have any questions. But I have been thinking about the 11-star experience after you presented it during the panel today. And I was just wondering, have any of you come across what you would think of a 10 or an 11-star experience at one of our hosts? You don't necessarily need to name them, but have you seen something that you thought, wow, that's an impressive use of the platform, or that's just an impressive offering from a venue to their hirers that you think might be relevant for other people to learn about, that you want to share today? Is there anything that any of you, feel free to jump in, you think that you might like to share today?
I've got a good example. So I've had a host in the past actually have catering options available as items and charges. So that way their guests can actually come through and not have to think about catering. It's just an item and charge that they add in upon their checkout. But then also, this one really got me, was a party box. A hireable party box where you can hire plates and cutlery and everything to go along with your booking, and you just check it all out at the end.
Brilliant. Lexi, Julius, any ideas?
Tegan, you totally just stole mine. I was absolutely going to talk about the party boxes because it's a really great initiative for this venue because they try and have as little waste as possible. So having these reusable party boxes that you can hire and have all of the cutlery, plates, cups, everything that you'd need in really nice colors too, by the way. It just reduces the waste at a kid's party. I've got a 3-year-old. I know exactly how much waste comes out of a kid's party, and it's a really, really great initiative for both the guests to use, but also to keep that waste level down as well.
Brilliant. Julius, have you got any examples of what you'd think of being a sort of a 10 or 11-star experience?
A 10-star experience, I would say, that I experienced from the past is with one of our hosts who has a number of campsites listed in SpacetoCo. So, of course, there are natural calamities that would happen, and we have no control over this. So, as ahead of time, because they anticipated that a number of their customers will be canceling their bookings, and because they have the cancellation policy applied, I think it's 2 days before the actual booking date, so it is 100% refund. So ahead of time, they instructed us that we can provide 100% refund for everyone who cancels their bookings because of the said I think it's a storm or a heavy storm back then. So I mean, like, they in what should have happened is, like, the customer would contact us, and then we would be asking approval for the host to provide the 100% refund for their bookings. But this time they contacted us ahead of time, and then they provided us the approval right then and there that every customer who cancels at this booking date and booking dates, because they'll be affected by the storm, please ensure that they're getting 100% refund. So that there is a 10-star service.
Yeah, fantastic. I have another question, if that's okay, Teags, if you're happy for me
Go for it.
Um, Now, in life, in general, at work, sometimes things go wrong, and this is like an example that Julius just sort of gave. Things go wrong, and I think what I find about customer support and customer success is when people are when something happens, how quickly they respond and how well they respond. So often, when things go right, you don't tend to notice. And rather than dwelling on the things that go wrong, what I'd love to hear from you is what you think makes a good response, or what you think makes an 11-star response to if something has gone wrong. That could be in the context of venues, or you could give another example outside of the venue world, something that you've experienced, or something just in general that you think makes for an 11-star experience in the event that something goes wrong. How do you recover?
So I think for me personally, as like a more of like a general overview, is you don't have to fix the problem there and then. The first step is acknowledgement. Acknowledge the problem and the issue and provide updates. Don't leave someone hanging. If you don't get a response in 2 or 3 days, I know myself, I get frustrated and then I start following up. So again, it's being proactive instead of reactive. It could be a bug in the system, use case scenario, and it may take a little while for that bug to be fixed. So every 24 or 48 hours, checking in, has that bug been fixed? If it hasn't, going back to your customer and going, hey, just letting you know, we've followed this up. This is where we're at. We may not necessarily resolve the problem, but the customer knows that we're on it. They know that we haven't just forgotten about them. And again, that's being proactive and keeping them updated so they're not chasing you and then you're becoming reactive.
Yeah, good stuff. Lexi, Julius, do you have anything to add to Teague's response, or any other examples?
Yeah, well, this is actually something that I live by, and I think it's applicable to this one. It's called the 90-10 principle. So I don't know if you've heard about it, but like 90% of what's happening to you in everyday life is something that is controllable, while the other 10% is something that you cannot control. So if you are to like adjust at anything or take action, why do you have to um, focus on the 10% that you cannot control? So instead, focus on the other 90% that you can control, which can then turn the 10% that's not controllable as, let's say, a happy accident, or something as a potential opportunity to make something out of it that's beautiful and amazing. So, yeah, again, 90-10 principle, focus on what you can control, not on what you cannot.
Good stuff. Lexi?
Yeah, I think I'll just jump off the back of everyone. Communication is key. Keeping people updated, whether that be internally with your team or with whoever the issue has happened with. Just keeping in contact and just letting them know that you are still working on them. Don't leave their email for 4 days while you're trying to work out what's going on. Reply straight away and go, I am working on it. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. And really just keeping people updated is super important to make sure that they feel seen and heard, and that you're not just trying to avoid the scenario or situation.
Good stuff. That was all incredibly valuable, just for me personally, and I'm sure that the audience has really enjoyed hearing from you as well. Teagues, do you have any last minute questions that you'd like to cover during the session today?
None that I can think of. No, I think that pretty much covers it from my end.
Wonderful. Well, I think this session is going to be slightly shorter than our typical collabs, but before I let everyone off the hook, I'm going to reach out to everyone who is watching. And if you're watching live, great. I'd love you to pop it in the chat. If you're not watching live, feel free to email into us. But I'd love to hear from all of you. If you could request an 11-star experience from SpacetoCo, what would that look like for you? I'm not making any promises. And in fact, my bosses are probably a little bit concerned that I'm reaching out, asking this question, but it'd be really interesting to hear. You've learned what an 11-star experience looks like. Now, I know Teagues, I know Lexi, and I know Julius, and I know they do their very best every day to offer you all the best possible experience. But it'd be interesting to hear, what you would think, what you would like to see from us in terms of how could we go all the way to 11 stars. Because I know we're doing our own work in the background of what we think that 11-star experience might look like for you based on a lot of the intel that we have. But I'm keen to hear what that would look like for you. And if anyone has any last minute questions now, I'm just going to give you a moment to pop those ideas in the chat, and also any last minute questions in the chat. I can see that Alice Goodall has written in, and her 11-star experience would be regular hirers to be able to customize how they pay for the hire, pardon me. Lexi, do you have any ideas on that? Do you have any thoughts on that? What do you think about that 11-star experience?
Yeah, I think we can definitely have a chat about that one.
Good stuff.
Help there.
Okay, well, look, I think that that's just about wrapped up our session for today. I just have one more slide. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, all of our panelists, for joining us. Lexi, Teagues, Julius, it's been wonderful to hear from you. And I've learned a lot. So I'm hoping that all of our guests have taken away a lot from today too. And we'd like to continue the conversation beyond this. So as I said, feel free to write into us to ask questions, and you can keep learning from all of our panelists because we're lucky enough to have them as part of our team. But that's really all that we're going to cover in today. So we'll give you some of your time back, which is wonderful. But please be sure to sign up for our next collab, which is happening on Tuesday, the 29th of September. And the topic is going to be managing hire relationships. And during this session, you're going to learn how to free up your time for what matters most. So it's sort of a continuation on from the topic that we've been having today about being proactive, but also giving your hirers the best possible experience by managing their relationships. But finally, just a huge thank you to everyone who has signed in, who has been part of the conversation, who has offered their ideas, and of course to our panelists. If you're interested in learning any more about SpacetoCo, you can follow the QR code that's on the screen to visit our website or book a demo. But thank you very much, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll look forward to seeing you at our next collab. Thanks so much. Bye.